Hello everyone, and welcome to Artistic Layman Live. Now, a personal goal I've always made for myself is to never be cliche, that was always something I've always strived to be on in my daily routine. Now, my first definition of cliche that I ever heard was a worn-out joke that has been done a million times, and on the first glance of it, it might seem a little odd. I mean, how on earth can a Christian not be cliche? I mean, a Christian is a person who holds to a belief system that's over 2,000 years old, and as a Protestant, I'm basically holding to a religious tradition that's been around for nearly 500 years. So, what on earth do I mean by this? Well, the reason why I always tried not, and also when I think about cliche is really more of an entertainment principle more than anything else. But I find that people who don't realize this or don't actually strive to not be cliche have difficulty because not only is being cliche kind of boring, it's also because being cliche renders you incapable of being reasonable or being engaging in any way. And the perfect example of this is actually my very last time of calling into the Atheist Experience, which was about a week ago, which is actually last Sunday, The host was actually one other person and Tracy Harris, the same woman who was in the very first time I called in, and for the record, this probably be my last time calling in. And she was just a perfect example of how being cliche can completely disable a person's ability to engage. In the call, I made from my perspective, I believe that a consistent intellectual atheist is a moral nihilist, and so I asked the question, why are you guys not moral nihilists? And for some reason, the conversation went into something... what is it? She went into this whole explanation of trying to prove her morality by comparing it to saying that she could see morality in dogs. I kid you not. She actually tried to, rather than trying to say what her position was, she tried to prove her position by illustrating empirically that it exists in other lower human animals. And it was just surprising because I wasn't asking her to prove her position, I was asking if her position existed, and she was so locked into her mindset of being empirical. I mean, the Atheist Experience is basically something that's kind of predictable over and over again. There are people who are saying, well, you have to fulfill the burden of proof, and when they say fulfill the burden of proof, you mean you have to convince me. And the problem is I think they've been in that position for so long that they can't realize that their position, they don't know how to explain their position, or at the very least they don't know how to explain their position in a tenable way to someone who isn't Christian. And so as a result, they've been stuck in that mindset. They have become cliche in a way that makes them incapable of not only explaining their own position, but understanding why someone would disagree with them. Because, I mean, at least when I'm trying to have a conversation with someone, or if I fundamentally disagree with, I imagine it's something. I imagine it's kind of like the debate between Jared Taylor and Tariq Nasheed. I mean, he's basically Tariq Nasheed. That thing could be basically a whole meme at this point, because Tariq Nasheed has basically made himself into a conspiracy theory. He's nothing more than a conspiracy theorist, or a conspiracy theory. How every single comment has to be reworded and redefined in a way that makes the white man so the enemy of all things, and not to mention the enemy of all things, but this all-powerful entity of all things. Oh, it's funny. But actually, this brings me back to actually bringing up in passing the original topic of what I did yesterday, which was to see the Black Panther movie. Against better judgment, I actually went out to go see it because everyone is saying how wonderful this film is, or they were saying how awesome this film is, how it's going to be Marvel's first magnum opus, how it's going to be. Oh, I wish I could find the actual quote from the article. It was what was it called? It was, I think it was Marvel's first actual genuine masterpiece. Yeah, and getting that whole 99% on Rotten Tomatoes and whatnot. But I saw it. It's the fact that the fact that they can't transition peacefully, easily from talking scenes to action scenes is kind of indicative of them not being worthy of the 90th percentile that they keep talking about. It's really fun. I guess what I make this problem is not in the keeping with the sense of the whole cliche theme that I'm trying to go for this episode. It's kind of weird that the movie was so underwhelming for me. Not in the sense that it was like an original story with an original plot. I mean, because the thing is, because for the previous movie before this was Thor Ragnarok, which involved the great stories of demigod characters, and, oh, spoiler alert, basically ends with a giant flaming skeletal character smashing a sword into a giant heavenly city and blowing it to pieces. And not to mention a whole transition of an interdimensional deathmatch market being overrun and overwhelmed. So how on earth do you go from that to talking about a hidden civilization that's actually been on Earth all this whole time? And what's even annoying is that it wasn't even presented in a way that's actually indicates that all the plot stories were there, because basically the way the Black Panther story was revised or rewritten was that apparently this Black Panther society made this incredible technologically advanced society in the midst of our normal civilization without anyone knowing about it, or even hinting about it. And, I mean, that's entertaining for a certain extent. I mean, of course, in a comic book sense, it makes great deal of sense, because the people who have the least amount of political power actually have all this technological advancement, and yet, for some reason, they decide they were completely separated from all of human history. And of course, as I watched it, in the back of my head, the phrases "we was kings" and "that's right" kept ringing up in my ears over and over again. And it's a perfect example of how a movie was completely destroyed by its basically undermined or destroyed by its political influence, by recent political influence, or greatly controlled by political influence. Because, I mean, if the whole Black Lives Matter thing and the whole "we was kings" movement didn't exist, I would have enjoyed this movie a lot better. But ultimately, to go back to this whole theme of cliche, I'm just so tired of superhero movies. I mean, other people have mentioned this before, but I mean, the superhero movies have been, the Marvel universe has been going around for what, 11 years at this point? And there's something so... The movies themselves have become cliche at this point, because on the one, even though we're getting new information and new characters leading up to this great conflict between the Avengers and everyone else versus Thanos, it's like I really want just to be over at this point, so I can stop more thinking about it and actually move on to other things, or at least move on to movies that have something else to do for it. I mean, the movie is really fun. I mean, not to say that the movie is bad. I'm not saying that Black Panther is a bad movie. I mean, there's some interesting phrases that probably wouldn't have made a lot of sense there. It's, if you let, for example, I remember this one section of the movie is, if you let refugees into Wakanda, then Wakanda will be like everywhere else, which is actually a very interesting nationalistic phrase about, like, how you should maintain your national identity and maintain your borders. But then again, the movie does kind of go into, well, we need to treat everyone as if we were one people and move on from there. But also, it's just... I mean, there are good... It is a good... a friend of mine, Collaboration Media, made the comment that the movie was bad. And I said, no, the movie's not bad, it's just high quality bad. So much energy and so much time and so much resources have gone to this movie, but it's just something that's so... It is entertaining, but I just felt tired afterwards, because honestly I just wanted the series to get over with, because there's nothing original about it, just not entertaining at this point anymore. Or it is entertaining, it's just that I'm not looking forward to it. I'm just kind of waiting for the series to end at this point. So what is this whole point about cliches and bringing about cliche in response to this atheist experience, and this in particular? Well, I guess I said before that cliches is just a matter of entertainment, so as such, it really doesn't really relate to people in general. But I also find that, like, to put them into our political context, like, for example, in our political context, liberals have become utterly cliche. Every single one of their talking points have been not only done to death, but done to death and completely wrong. And that's the point. Maybe cliche is something cliche is only temporary. Maybe what I find boring now will find interesting 10 years from now. But there are some things that just don't work that way. I mean, another kind of problem is cliche is like not saying something that has been said before, but saying something that's been said before that's horribly wrong. Like the whole Hebrew, the Black Israelite argument. I mean, there is no truth in that whatsoever. And every single false religion on the planet is kind of a joke at this point. But I guess in a way, I mean, you see me. I'm actually dressed up in a quasi nice suit, and that's because I'm being dressed up for a wedding. And so, well, what do you mean by this? Is everything cliche? I mean, is everything just a variation of something else? I mean, as I forget, Malcolm Muggeridge once said that new news is just old news happening to new people, and so isn't kind of pointless to try and not be cliche? And shouldn't we just accept the fact and just not bother with trying to be interesting or different? And that's the thing. And I think that would be a real shame if everyone embraced that idea. As a more artistic individual, I find that being just like everyone else I mean, there is a problem with absolute novelty because there is a problem with being so unique and so different that no one can understand you. I think that might have been a problem with me on the Atheist Experience because they're so used to people having very specific kind of questions that they can give like gift card, little note card answers to. But there is like a subtle difference between being so unique you're not understand and being so predictable that everyone goes along with you and no one really sees a difference in your positions. And I guess there is one benefit to being not cliche, but just is to be the same as everyone else, to be identifiable and understandable by everyone else. But that's just, I think there's something missing in that. I think we kind of lose a whole spice of life, or they lose a whole section of possibility when they do that, because like I said before, when you're stuck in one single mindset, you're not only capable of understanding yourself, your own position, but unable to explain yourself to different people. And so that's really all I have to say about being cliche. And I guess at this runtime of only 10 minutes, I guess there's not enough people watching to have any questions, so I guess let's just see if there's any comments left. Let's see, was there anything else in the movie? Was there anything else left to comment about? No, I guess that's pretty much it for this live stream, folks. But I guess people have to ask questions afterwards when they show up. But I appreciate everyone else who showed up to listen to me rant for about 10 minutes. And I also have to edit this video so I can get rid of the whole waiting momentarily part in the beginning. So thank you very much for listening, and I guess I'll see you all, and hopefully have another time to actually have a chat or discuss topics. With that, enjoy the credits. Don't forget to like or dislike this video, add it to your favorites, or share it if you really liked it. Leave a comment below. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, Gab, AskFM, and Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to see future videos. Until then, take care and Godspeed.